Hi friends, it's Teresa coming to you with a sweatshirt on April 13th, the day after Easter. I feel so connected to what I'm getting ready to say today. And my attire kind of reflects the mood of what I'm going to talk about. It's been kind of a slow day, but I sincerely believe that today is the day that I need to talk about this. And it's just that important to me. Maybe this is the most important lesson that I've given yet. And hopefully it will help you, it will bless you, and that you can get through another day. How can I not be depressed during the time of the coronavirus and this pandemic? I want to start by saying that there's 5 different kinds, and I promise you this is not going to bore you. But I need to set this stage so you'll know there are differences. There's 5 kinds of depression at least. I've looked up several different articles today. It depends on the book that you look at. Some of them say it's 3, some of them say it's 12, some of them say it's 9. But for what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to mention there's 5 kinds, and one of them is just major depression, which is when you have sleep problems, you have eating problems, you have a loss of energy, sometimes you have a loss of appetite, or you have to where you don't want to eat at all. You have slowed thinking, you are not motivated at all to get up, and you pretty much so see the glass is half empty or even empty when you know that it's not. The next kind is persistent depressive disorder, and that used to be called dysthymia, and it's kind of like major depression, but it's not hardly as bad and long lasting. Bipolar depression is having ups, really high ups, and really low downs. And then you have seasonal affective disorder, which happens to so many people in the fall, whether they are inclined to depression or not, it happens in the fall. Then you have postpartum depression, which is after the birth of a baby. Well, in 1984, I had 3 that coincided at the same time. It was a major collision in my life. And I experienced a major depression, which I call a clinical depression because I've suffered from depression of some form since I was a little girl. I'd be at the breakfast table or the dinner table and I would just burst out in tears, or I would be sitting in my 7th grade class in front of Connie Wilson and have tears rolling down my face. And she asked me, and my mom would ask me, "What's wrong, honey?" And I would say, "I don't know." And so anyway, I didn't know what depression was in the 60s, and it was definitely taboo to talk about, but I struggled with it. And I have since then. I also am bipolar, and that was not, I was not diagnosed with that for many years. And bipolar is the correct definition, but when you are bipolar and you are high, you think that nothing is wrong. And so you go to the doctor when you want to commit suicide because it scares you to death. But then eventually the bipolar diagnosis came, and I was satisfied with that. And I always talk about it. I don't have a fear of losing a job or not being liked or any of those things of being frowned upon, because if I can help somebody who's in those shoes, I definitely will go out of my way to. And in 1984, I was suffering from a situational depression, which was a surgery that I had. I had a hysterectomy and a bladder repair at the same time. Well, I had 2 children. One of them was 5 months old, and then one of them was 3 years old. I came home not able to lift 10 pounds, and my mother and father-in-law had to move into our house to take care of the kids. I was suffering from postpartum depression because I had just had a baby 5 months prior, and I did with my first child too in 1981. And so being situationally depressed, having postpartum depression, and then also suffering from clinical depression my entire life, it was nothing but doom and downhill from there. So I went into a suicidal depression, and the depression in the valley lasted 10 years. I went in 1984 and I came out in 1994, not to where I can say yippity doo-dah and the skies are blue every day, but I have never been since then as low as I was then. So I'm telling you, I speak from experience, and I don't mind going through it for you because you need to know my background, but it's something I just really like to put in the past because I don't want to live in the past. I want to live today, and I want to give you hope. So typically the 3 words that are used for somebody suffering from depression are helpless, hopeless, and worthless. And so I don't know how you feel right now, but probably I would say in this coronavirus, people are starting to feel helpless, hopeless, and worthless. And let me describe that because I think it should be pretty obvious to you. We feel helpless because it's an invisible virus and we don't know what to do. We are confined inside. We sometimes can't find groceries. We are not sure who we can be around. When we go out, we're scared to death. So we feel hopeless in that, when is it going to end? We don't really know when it's going to end. We don't know what to do. Will we make ends meet? Because nobody is working. So there's a lot of feeling of hopelessness about what if I can't even feed my own family? What am I going to do? And then the worthlessness, I think, that men might be feeling especially, or anybody. In my family, Phil works, I don't, and I haven't for years. But in any family where especially they have even 2 incomes right now, there's, I guess, a feeling of worthlessness because I want to work, but my husband said the other day, I don't like being told not to work. So in a way, he sees that the funds are dwindling and he can't do anything about it. So in a way, he feels kind of worthless about it right now. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, which leads to a major point about depression. The penny kind of dropped and I got a handle on what depression is when I found the definition for depression, which I can hang my hat on, and that is depression is anger turned inward. That makes so much sense to me. And I didn't know it while I was going through it, but I was angry after my surgery. I was angry because I had had surgery, could not have a baby, wanted a third child. The surgeon that I had, it wasn't his fault, but I bled for 2 hours and I ended up having to have a second surgery. I was in surgery for 8 hours one day. I could not lift more than 10 pounds. I could not go home and resume a normal activity. I went to my bedroom. My mother-in-law took care of my kids for 6 weeks. I barely came out of the bedroom for 6 whole weeks. She changed every diaper, made every bottle, cooked every meal. Our church was fabulous because they fixed our evening meal for us at least every other night for 6 weeks. So depression and anger go hand in hand because if depression is frozen rage, when that rage thaws, then you get anger. And I could get angry on a dime. I could go from being totally depressed to being angry at the same time. And it's simply, anger and depression are flip sides of the same problem. So if the economy does not turn around quickly and people do not resume their normal life and get into a job routine, people are going to get angry and they're going to start to retaliate. And I see a sense of that already, which it's up to the president and up to the governors and whoever it is to loosen the reins on what we're wanting to do. And of all things, friends, we need to pray about that because we don't want to go back to the humdrum routine, the wonderful life that we did have, and then have a second wave of this and a third wave of this to make it matters worse. There is a verse that was my lifeline when I was in the throes of depression, and it is in Lamentations 3. Lamentations kind of gives words to what depression feels like, and you certainly don't feel like thinking. So when I found Lamentations and I read it, it's a very, very short little book, and I read it recently one time to a man who was going through chemotherapy, and he was in the throes of cancer, and he didn't know if he was going to live or not. And I went to his hospital room, and by him I read out loud all of Lamentations. And when I got to the third chapter in verses 22 through 24, this is where I gave him hope. This is where God gives me hope. And this is where I'm hoping to give you hope. So this is what Lamentations 3:22 through 24 says. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore, I will wait for him. It gave me hope to realize that every day I could start anew, even though I might not wanted to have lived the day before. I could start new again because his mercies are new every morning. It was a clean slate. Waiting is the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. 10 years was a long time. 9 months is a long time to have a baby. But waiting typically is the hardest thing for anybody to do, and that's where we are right now. We're in about the 4th week of a quarantine. We're having to live a life that we are unaccustomed of living and have never lived this life before. So let me tell you in closing some things that got me through major depression when I was suicidal, and that I have to rely on and fall back on even today at 65 years old. Number 1 is live one day at a time. Actually, there were days I lived 1 second at a time, that my goal was to live to the end of it, staying alive. In that one day at a time, live in the present moment. Live right now at this moment. Don't let your mind go too far ahead. Don't let it go back at all, or you'll lose it. Have a routine. Have a routine. And that means getting up and taking a shower, at least a shower sometime during the day. Excuse me. When I was depressed, and even now, taking a shower was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. I could not make myself get out of bed. I could not make myself get up and take a shower. And so what it meant was I laid around all day in my gown or my house coat or whatever it was, which was totally the worst thing that I could do. The next thing is take a shower. Take a shower. The next thing is get physical and spiritual exercise. I know right now that people that are used to going to the gym are frustrated if they're not disciplined and have something at home to where they can exercise. I know that they are extremely frustrated right now. Try to have a routine of exercise as much as you can. Make it physical and spiritual. I can't say enough things. Really, you need to have the spiritual exercise first. You need to be in the Word, even if it's a small sliver. You need to pray, and you need to serve somebody, which is another thing that I had to learn to do. I had to do something for somebody else to get my eyes off of myself. So if there's any way that you can find somebody that you can help, take groceries to if you want to get out, call and see if you can have help, write a card, just do any simple thing to serve somebody else. That will help you as much as anything. Eat healthy foods. Don't eat junk food, which I'm typically doing right now, but eat healthy foods. Foods that are good for you, that will give you energy. And have healthy social distancing. We can stay apart, but be together. I've never Zoomed until the other night when our family got together, and it was laughable that we tried to Zoom and be together. Facebook, I have criticized, but right now Facebook is probably people's lifeline. Social distance as much as you can, but also stay connected in acceptable ways that will keep us from spreading germs and infecting each other and infecting ourselves. I want to end with another verse, which is Revelations 21:4. Seems like to be not very significant, but to me it is very, very significant. And this is talking about in the New Jerusalem, in the end, after Jesus comes back. And it says, He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death will not exist anymore, or mourning, or crying, or pain. For the former things ceased to exist. That's such a blessing for me. We are living in the former things. We are living in this life when we have a new life to look forward to. This world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. There's treasures laid up somewhere beyond the blue. I'm waiting for those treasures, but I know that right now, for some reason, we are in this for such a time as this, and this too will pass. God bless you all. If you feel yourself slipping into depression, listen to this over and over and over again. I made it. I survived, and I am here, Teresa Kimball, on April the 13th, 2020, telling people how I overcame it. God bless you all. Love you.